Hello everyone, welcome to Teacher Diala's channel. Here's a list of the most famous stories you can read, listen to, or watch. Here we go. The Ant and the Grasshopper. This is a story that talks about two characters, the ant and the grasshopper. The ant was a hard worker, while the grasshopper was a lazy animal. The ant used to work a lot during the sunny days, collecting food to store so it can use during the winter season. However, the grasshopper enjoyed its time singing and jumping. Things went wrong when winter came and the grasshopper was in need to eat. The ant helped its friend but taught him a very important lesson: never be lazy again. The Ugly Duckling. It is a story that talks about a duckling that was born in a duck family. However, it didn't look like any of its siblings. The family refused to keep the duckling with the other family members. The duckling felt sad and went to the pond. There, all of the ducks looked at the ugly duckling and laughed. However, two nice geese took the ugly duckling with them. Day after day, the duckling was growing up to become a very nice swan. For the rest of the days, the swan lived happily. The Three Little Pigs. The Three Little Pigs is a story about three pigs who built their houses of different materials. The first house was made of straw, the second house was built of sticks, and the third house was built out of bricks. One day a wolf came and blew down the first house, then the second one, but was unable to blow the house made up of bricks. At the end of the story, the pigs learned to give time in building houses so nothing bad would happen to them. Hansel and Gretel. Hansel and Gretel is a story that talks about two characters, Hansel and Gretel, who were living with their father and stepmother. One day, Hansel heard his stepmother talking to his father to get rid of his kids. The father refused first, but she obliged him. Smart Hansel collected some pebbles to throw on the way while they were going to the forest. Everything was fine since he could go back to his house. Their stepmother tried to take them again to the forest. That time they couldn't collect pebbles, so they threw bread on the way. But what happened? The birds ate the bread, and Hansel and Gretel stayed at the forest. There, a witch invited them to her house. She started feeding Hansel because he was thin, so she could eat him again. One night, their father came searching for them, took the witch to jail, and lived happily with his kids. Cinderella. Once upon a time, in a village, there lived a beautiful girl named Cinderella with her wicked stepmother and two stepsisters. She worked hard all day. One day, they all went to a ball in the palace, leaving Cinderella behind. Cinderella was feeling sad. Suddenly, there was a burst of light, and the fairy godmother appeared. With a flick of the magic, she turned Cinderella into a beautiful princess with glass slippers and a horse carriage appeared at the door. The fairy godmother warned Cinderella to return before midnight. Cinderella arrived at the ball. The prince saw her and fell in love with her. They danced together all night. As the clock struck 12, Cinderella rushed out to her carriage, leaving one of her slippers behind. The prince went to every house in the town with the slipper until he found Cinderella. The prince and Cinderella lived happily ever after. Jack and the Beanstalk. Once upon a time, a boy named Jack got himself into the biggest, most humongous heap of trouble ever. It all started when Jack's mother asked him to milk the old cow. But Jack decided he was tired of milking cows. "No way, no how, I'm not milking this brown cow now," said Jack, and he decided to sell the old cow so he'd never have to milk it again. Jack was on his way to market to sell the cow when he came across a peddler. "Hi, Mr. Peddler," said Jack. "Where are you headed?" asked the peddler. "I'm going to sell my cow at the market," Jack answered. "Why sell your cow?" asked the peddler. "Trade her for beans." "Beans?" asked Jack. "Not just any kind of beans," said the peddler. "Magic beans." "What do they do?" asked Jack. "They do magic," said the peddler. "Magic? Sold," said Jack, and he traded the cow for 3 magic beans. Jack got home and told his mother he had sold the cow so he wouldn't have to milk her any more. "Oh dear, you did what?" Jack's mother said. "I sold her for magic beans," said Jack. "You sold a cow for magic beans?" Jack's mother couldn't believe what Jack was telling her. "There is no such thing as magic as beans," she said as she threw the beans out the window. "Well, I did make them disappear, but that still doesn't make them magic." Suddenly, the ground rumbled and began to shake. A magic beanstalk grew up right before their eyes. Jack. At the top of the beanstalk, Jack found a giant castle. He walked up to the giant door, cracked it open, and went inside. Inside the castle, Jack saw the most amazing thing he had ever seen. It was a goose, but it wasn't just any old ordinary goose. This goose laid eggs made of gold. "That is so cool," thought Jack. "Think of all the things you could do with the golden eggs." And then Jack got the worst idea he'd ever had. He was going to take the goose. Jack lifted the goose off its perch. Just then, the biggest, most fearsome, and only giant Jack had ever seen came into the room. The giant saw that his goose wasn't in its usual spot. "I'll eat you for lunch." "Oh no," thought Jack. "That giant's going to eat me. I've got to get out of here without him seeing me." Quietly and carefully, Jack took the goose and made his way toward the door. He was almost out of the room when the goose cried out and the giant spotted Jack. "Oh!" screamed Jack. He ran toward the beanstalk. Jack ran as quickly as he could down the beanstalk, but the giant was following close behind. Just as Jack put his feet back on the ground, the giant picked up Jack in his enormous hands. "I bet you taste yum yum," said the giant. Just as the giant was about to eat Jack, the ground began to shake, and there, standing right behind the giant, was an even bigger, taller, more humongous lady giant. At that moment, Jack apologized to the giant man and lady and then went back to his home. You're right, I'd say the whole adventure was a great success. Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there was a dear little girl who was loved by everyone who looked at her, but most of all by her grandmother, and there was nothing that she would not have given to her child. Once she gave her a little cap of red velvet which suited her so well that she would never wear anything else, so she always called Little Red Riding Hood. One day her mother said to her, "Come, girl, here's a piece of cake and a bottle of milk. Take them to your grandmother. She is ill and weak, and she will feel better after that." And her mother told her to take care of herself. "I will take great care," said Little Red Riding Hood to her mother and gave her hand on it. On her way, Little Red Riding Hood met a wolf, and that wolf scared her. But later on, he told her that he would tell her to go to her grandmother's house in a short distance. Little Red Riding Hood felt happy and went to her grandmother's house. The wolf was faster than her and decided to reach her grandmother's house first. When she reached the cottage of her grandmother, she was surprised to find the cottage door standing open. And when she went into the room, she had such a strange feeling that she said to herself, "What's wrong? What's happening with my grandmother?" So she went into the room, and when she came to bed, she saw that the wolf was lying inside it. Later on, Little Red Riding Hood noticed that something wrong was happening. So she started shouting, and her father was coming to visit her grandmother. So he entered the house, killed the wolf, and got the grandmother out of the closet. By the end of the story, Little Red Riding Hood learned a very important lesson: not to listen to any stranger. The Tortoise and the Hare. Once there was a hare. He felt very proud because he could run very fast. One day, he saw a slow-moving tortoise. The hare laughed at the tortoise and said, "You are moving very fast. Shall we have a running race?" The tortoise knew that he could not run fast like the hare. He thought, "Why not? Why not have some fun? I'm not worried about the failure." So he said, "I'm ready for the race," and accepted the challenge. The forest friends fixed a day for the race. On the fixed day, both the hare and the tortoise arrived at the starting point. They had to run up to a big tree nearly a mile away. It was really a long distance for the tortoise. The race started. The tortoise began to move forward slowly. The hare ran at great speed. After running for some time, the hare stopped to take a rest. The tortoise was far behind. "It will take him a long time to catch me," thought the hare. He lay down under a shady tree and soon fell asleep. Meanwhile, the tortoise kept moving slowly and steadily. On the way, he saw Hare in deep sleep. He continued to move and finally reached the winning point. The hare woke up after some time and began to run fast, but it was too late now. When he reached the end point, he saw the tortoise waiting with a smiling face. The hare hung his face in shame. Thanks for watching. Do not forget to subscribe to my channel. Click on the bell icon so that you get notified every time there is a new video, and share it to your social media platforms. Wait for me in different videos. See you soon.